My own mother's voice came through the phone, frantic and crying. "We've been trying to reach you for hours," she sobbed. I stood in the garden just off the reception hall, my white wedding dress feeling like a costume, the delicate lace suddenly heavy and foreign against my skin. "I was getting married, Mom," I said, my voice eerily calm, detached. A strange coldness had settled over me, a shield against the chaos. What she told me next wasn't just a simple excuse for why my entire family, my parents, my sister, my aunts, my uncles, had vanished on the most important day of my life. It was the unravelling of a monstrous lie, a deception so meticulously crafted it had rewritten my reality. It was the key to a locked room in my heart I didn't even know existed. Before we dive into the shocking details of how my own sister sabotaged my wedding day, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. And if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, like your accomplishments were always in someone else's shadow, then you'll understand the story I'm about to tell. To truly comprehend how we got to that desperate, tear-filled phone call, we have to go back. We have to walk through the quiet, lonely halls of my childhood and understand the architecture of silence. I grew up in a house in Spokane that smelled of lemon polish and unspoken things. From the outside, we were the picture of suburban contentment. My father, Frank, was a quiet, gentle man whose life mission seemed to be the avoidance of conflict. He kept his head down to keep the peace, a silent referee in a game he never signed up for. My mother, Lydia, was a woman of immense social grace, a warm sun whose light, I learned early on, shone brightest, and often exclusively, on my younger sister, Kaylee. Kaylee was born radiant. 2 years my junior, she entered the world as if a spotlight was already following her. With her effortless blonde hair, a laugh that sounded like wind chimes, and a natural flair for the dramatic, she was the undisputed star of our family. She didn't just exist, she performed, and she was brilliant at it. I was her quiet shadow, the moon to her sun. I found my solace not on a stage, but in the focused, predictable world of academics, in the elegant certainty of physics equations. Later, I found my passion in audio engineering, a profession built on listening intently, on finding the truth hidden beneath layers of noise. It suited me. I was good at hearing what wasn't being said. The favoritism wasn't a secret whispered in corners. It was the very air we breathed, the foundation upon which our house was built. I have a memory from my sophomore year of high school that's as sharp today as it was then. I'd won first place at the state science fair for a project on acoustic resonance. I remember driving home, my heart pounding with a rare, uncomplicated pride. I burst through the door clutching a large blue ribbon and a modest scholarship check. "Mom, Dad, look!" I announced, my voice trembling with excitement. My mother glanced up from the dining room table where she was helping Kaylee glue sequins onto a dance costume. "Oh, that's wonderful, dear," she said, her smile pleasant, but her eyes already drifting back to the task at hand. "Just put the ribbon on the counter. We'll find a place for it." Later that evening, I found it looped over the arm of a floor lamp in the corner of the living room, a casual, temporary decoration. It stayed there for 3 weeks before disappearing into a drawer. A month later, Kaylee won Most Expressive Performer at her dance recital. My parents framed the small certificate and the 8 out 10 photo of her in her costume, and they hung it in the centre of our living room wall, right next to the framed newspaper clipping from her lead role in the school play the year before. I want to be clear. I was never jealous of Kaylee's talent. I was in awe of it. What carved a quiet, hollow space in my chest was the undeniable message. Her achievements were worthy of a frame. Mine were worthy of a lamp. This pattern repeated itself relentlessly. My academic awards were nice, honey. Kaylee's callbacks were cause for celebratory dinners. The most painful example was my high school graduation. I was named valedictorian, an achievement I had worked tirelessly for. My parents promised they would be there, front and centre. But on the morning of the ceremony, my mother called. "Mara, honey, you're not going to believe this, but Kaylee has come down with a terrible fever," she said, her voice strained with a manufactured urgency I knew all too well. "I can't possibly leave her. Your father is going to stay with me. You understand, don't you?" I found out later from a friend's younger sister that Kaylee had been perfectly healthy, attending a final, non-mandatory dress rehearsal for a regional theatre competition. I understood. Oh, I always understood. But have you ever felt that? That specific gut-wrenching moment when you have to swallow your own disappointment whole, just to make someone else feel comfortable with their choice? It doesn't just hurt, it leaves a permanent scar. I left for college and built my own world, brick by painful brick. I made friends who saw me, who celebrated my wins and sat with me in my losses. And then I met Evan. It was at a friend's barbecue. He wasn't the loudest person there, but he had a stillness about him, a calm competence that felt like bedrock. He was an ICU nurse, a former army medic, and nothing seemed to rattle him. On our third date, over bowls of steaming ramen, I found myself doing something I rarely did. I told him about my family. I laid out the stories of the lamp and the graduation, expecting the usual polite but uncomfortable sympathy. Instead, Evan put down his chopsticks, reached across the table and covered my hand with his. He looked me directly in the eye and said, "That's not okay, Mara. That's not a normal, loving family. You deserve to be celebrated. You deserve to be seen." No one had ever said anything so direct, so validating. For years I had carried a secret fear that I was the problem. Too sensitive, too needy, too quiet. In that small, steamy restaurant, Evan's simple words felt like a key turning in a lock deep inside me. A lock I didn't even know I was trapped behind. He helped me see the dynamic for what it was, a chronic, painful pattern of emotional neglect. His family was the antidote to the poison I had grown up with. They welcomed me with an uncomplicated warmth that felt alien and wonderful. His mother, Carol, would call me on a Tuesday just to chat about a book she'd read. His father, Tom, a retired engineer, would send me articles about new audio technology he thought I'd find interesting, sparking conversations that had nothing to do with family drama. They were simply present. I'll never forget my first Christmas with them. I watched them exchange thoughtful, personal gifts, their home filled with easy laughter. When they turned to me, they handed me a beautifully wrapped present. Inside was a rare vinyl record from an obscure sound artist I'd mentioned once, months ago, in passing. The fact that they had listened, remembered, and cared enough to find it broke something open in me. Later that evening, I hid in the guest bathroom and cried. Not tears of sadness, but of a profound, aching relief. It was the grief of realizing what I had missed my entire life. Evan found me there. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just wrapped his arms around me and held me until the tears stopped. "You're home now," he whispered into my hair, and I knew he didn't just mean his parents' house. He meant with him. With Evan's unwavering support, I started therapy. My therapist, Dr. Sharma, gave me the vocabulary for my experiences. She taught me about complex family dynamics, about the golden child and the invisible child. She introduced me to the concept of radical acceptance, not condoning my family's behavior, but accepting the reality of their limitations so I could stop hurting myself by endlessly hoping for something they were incapable of giving. I told her once that I felt like I was constantly running a race I could never win, desperately trying to earn their approval. She looked at me with so much kindness and said, "Mara, what if you just stopped running? What if you accepted that they may never stand at your finish line and you decided to run for yourself instead. That one question changed everything. When Evan proposed on our 3rd anniversary on that quiet hiking trail overlooking the Puget Sound, my yes was easy and sure. The joy was pure, but as we began to plan our wedding, the old, familiar anxiety crept back in. I called my parents, my stomach in a knot. "Mom, I have some news," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Evan and I are engaged." There was that signature pause, just a beat too long. "Oh, well, that's nice, honey. Congratulations." The lack of enthusiasm was a physical blow. Before I could even share details about the ring or the proposal, she pivoted. "You know, Kaylee just got the lead role in a major production at the Playhouse. The annual fundraising gala is going to be a huge event this year. We're so thrilled for her." And just like that, my future was eclipsed by my sister's present. It was a lifetime of conditioning in a single sentence. Despite the lukewarm response, we moved forward. We chose a beautiful rooftop venue in Astoria that smelled of sea air and rosemary. We wanted something intimate and honest, with about 80 of our closest friends and family. I designed the invitations myself and built a digital RSVP website to make things easy. I sent the link to the family group chat with a beautiful photo of the venue at sunset. Kaylee responded with a single heart emoji. My mother wrote, "So proud of you too." And then I saw them, the 3 grey dots pulsing on my screen like a slow, ominous heartbeat. I held my breath. The message that finally appeared read, "Honey, I just looked at the calendar. That's the same night as Kaylee's theatre gala. It's a huge fundraising night for the Playhouse, and so many of our family friends will be there. Couldn't we just move your date a week? It would make it easier for everyone." Easier for everyone, except the bride and groom. The casual audacity of the request left me speechless. I want you to pause here and really think about this. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you move the most important day of your life to accommodate someone else's party? Let me know in the comments below. I truly want to know if I'm alone in finding this outrageous. My fingers trembled as I typed and deleted my response a dozen times. Finally, with Evan's encouragement, I sent something firm but polite. "We've already signed contracts and put down deposits, Mum. We picked this date for a reason. We'd love for you all to be with us on our day." 3 more dots, then nothing. Complete radio silence. The RSVP dashboard became my daily source of quiet torture. The names of our friends turned a cheerful green. Evan's family, instantly green. But the column for my family, my parents, my sister, my aunts, my uncles, remained stubbornly, painfully grey. Pending. It was an entire column of quiet, passive-aggressive rejection. My maid of honour, Tessa Nguyen, was my saving grace. We'd been friends since my first lonely year of college. She was the kind of friend who brings soup and doesn't ask for the bowl back. She took on her duties with a fierce dedication that made up for my family's indifference. But Tessa was also a theatre lover. The Playhouse had been a second home to her growing up. A week before the wedding, she texted me, "They're short 2 volunteers for the gala check-in. Ugh, so much drama." I felt a flicker of unease, but brushed it aside. "Just focus on us Saturday," I replied. "Promise," she wrote back with a string of heart emojis. I wouldn't miss it for the world. The night before the wedding, that promise shattered. We were in adjoining hotel rooms and I had just turned off my light when my phone screen illuminated the dark room. It was a long, rambling text from Tessa. "Mara, please don't hate me. The Playhouse is having a metaphorical fire. The check-in system crashed and they're a total mess. I'm the only one who knows the back end. I have to go help them. I'll be back by morning, long before the ceremony, I swear. I am so sorry." I stared at the ceiling, the words burning into my vision. My maid of honour was leaving me on the eve of my wedding for the gala, my sister's gala. "Okay," I typed back, my fingers numb. "Please be back." Just as I was reeling from that betrayal, my phone buzzed again. It was a text from Evan in the next room. "Mara, don't look at the family chat, but I need you to know what's happening." My blood ran cold. He forwarded me a screenshot. It was from an old group chat with my extended family, one I was rarely active in. It was a message, supposedly from me, sent just an hour before. It read, "Hi everyone, due to unforeseen venue capacity issues and a desire for a more private ceremony, we've unfortunately had to cancel the broader family invitations. We'll celebrate with you all at a later date." The language was stilted, corporate, but it used a few key phrases I had used in an old email, twisted into a cruel new shape. Below it, a cascade of replies from my aunts and uncles. "Oh, that's a shame. Well, thanks for letting us know." And then the final gutting message from my mother. "We're so disappointed, but we understand. We'll be at Kaylee's gala, thinking of you." With a sense of dread, I opened the group chat app. My name was no longer in the list of participants. Someone had removed me. In the dead of night, hours before I was to be married, I had been quietly, digitally excommunicated from my own family. My wedding day passed in a haze of beautiful grief. I moved with a strange, detached calm, the kind that comes when the reality is too enormous to process. Tessa, true to her word, arrived back at 9 a.m, looking exhausted and deeply apologetic, and threw herself into helping me get ready. But the damage was done. The hollow in my chest had become a cavern. There was no mother to help me with my veil, no sister to tell me I looked beautiful. When the music began to play and it was time for me to walk down the aisle, I stood alone at the back of the rooftop, the sea breeze whipping a loose strand of hair across my face. And then a gentle hand touched my arm. It was Tom, Evan's father, his kind eyes full of a sorrow that mirrored my own. "Mara," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "may I have the honour?" Tears I didn't know I had left sprang to my eyes. I nodded, unable to speak, and took his arm. Walking down that aisle was the most surreal moment of my life. I saw the smiling faces of our friends, the unconditional love in Evan's family, and the glaring, undeniable emptiness of the entire front row on my side. It was a physical representation of a lifetime of absence. But then I reached the altar and Tom placed my hand in Evan's, and the world narrowed to just his face. The awe, the love, the absolute certainty in his eyes. It was my anchor in the storm. "You look incredible," he whispered, and for a moment the empty chairs faded away. We exchanged our vows, words we had written ourselves, promises to be each other's family, each other's safe harbour. The reception was a defiant celebration. Our friends and Evan's family danced and laughed, their joy a protective force field against the sadness that lingered at the edges. Tom danced the father-daughter dance with me, holding me gently as I cried silently against his shoulder for the father I wished I had. Then it was time to cut the cake. We stood together, smiling for the photographer, our hands clasped around the silver knife. As we pressed down, making the first cut into the sweet frosting, my phone, which I had retrieved and tucked into a hidden pocket of my dress, began to vibrate, and then again and again, a frantic, insistent rhythm against my leg. While Evan began serving slices to our guests, I discreetly pulled it out. A text from my mother, "We need to talk, now." And below it, a cascade of notifications, 37 missed calls, from my mother, my father, even Kaylee, all within the last hour. A cold dread, sharp and familiar, washed over me. "Everything okay?" Evan asked, his smile fading as he saw the colour drain from my face. I showed him the screen. "I don't know." "Whatever it is, it can wait," he said firmly. "They made their choice. This day is ours." He was right, but a lifetime of conditioning, of hoping against hope, made me hesitate. "What if something is really wrong?" I whispered. He studied my face, his love for me overriding his anger at them. "Go, call them," he said softly. "But remember, you don't owe them this day." I found a quiet corner in the venue's garden, the city lights twinkling like a distant, indifferent galaxy. My hand trembled as I dialed my mother's number. She answered on the first ring. "Mara, oh, thank God, we've been trying to reach you for hours." Her voice was a frantic, tearful mess. "I was getting married, Mom," I said, the ice in my voice sharp enough to cut glass. What could possibly be so urgent? What she said next shattered the very foundation of the day, of my life, of everything I thought I knew. It was the sound of my world breaking apart. "It's Kaylee," my mother sobbed, her words tumbling out in a rush of hysteria and shame. "Her fiancé, Miles. He called off the engagement, right in the middle of the gala. He did it in front of everyone." I sank onto a nearby bench, the phone feeling slick and heavy in my palm. This was the first part of the reveal, a shocking event, but it didn't explain the 37 missed calls. "He did it because he found out what she did to you," my mother continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial, horrified whisper. And here was the second, more critical part. "Mara, she lied about everything." My mother's words began to paint a picture of deception so calculated, so profoundly cruel. It felt like something out of a movie. Kaylee hadn't just selfishly scheduled her party on the same day. No, it was so much worse. She had used her administrative access to our shared family calendar to find the master recovery link for my wedding website, a link only I was supposed to have. Hours before the ceremony, she had logged in. "She changed all our responses," my father choked out. "Your aunts, your uncles, us. She changed every single one from attending to declined." I thought of the column of grey on my screen, the names stacked like unclaimed suitcases. It wasn't indecision, it wasn't passive aggression, it was sabotage. But she didn't stop there. The conspiracy deepened. "She showed us fake text messages," my father's voice cut in, grave and heavy with a shame so palpable I could feel it through the phone. I was on speakerphone. "She used an app to create entire conversations, making it look like you were the one uninviting us. She made it look like you were ashamed of us, that you only wanted Evan's perfect family there." I remembered being removed from the group chat, the stilted corporate language of the fake message. The pieces were clicking into place, forming a monstrous, unbelievable image. "She even convinced Tessa you'd replaced her as maid of honour," my mother added, her voice cracking completely. "She told her that you were too embarrassed to tell her to her face, and that going to the gala would be saving her from the humiliation of showing up and seeing someone else in her place." The betrayal was total. It was a multi-pronged attack, designed to isolate me completely on the one day I was supposed to be surrounded by love. "But why?" I whispered, the question hanging in the cold night air, a question I had been asking my whole life. "Why did you believe her? After all my calls, my messages, why didn't you just call me?" There was a long, painful silence, a silence that stretched for an eternity. Then my father spoke the words that would shatter and then, paradoxically, begin to heal me. "Because we were cowards, Mara," he said, his voice raw with a self-loathing I had never heard from him before. "The truth is, we knew we hadn't been good parents to you. We knew we'd favoured your sister, that we'd let you down time and time again. When she came to us with those texts, with that story, a part of us believed it. Because God forgive us, we felt we deserved it. It was easier to believe her lie than to face the truth of how badly we had failed you as parents. The confession hit me harder than the lie itself. They hadn't just been tricked, they had been willing participants in their own deception, because it confirmed the guilt they already carried. My absence was easier to accept than their own failure. I told them to meet me at the hotel. At 10:30, we stood in a small, sterile conference room, the air thick with decades of unspoken truths. I didn't need to show them the screenshots or the logs. I just needed to look them in the eye. My father spoke first. "Mara, there are no words. What we did, it's unforgivable." "Sorry doesn't change the empty chairs," I said, my voice tight with a pain so deep it felt ancient. "It doesn't change the fact that you believed I would cut you out of my life without even picking up the phone to ask me why. What kind of daughter did you think you raised?" Tears streamed down my mother's face. "A daughter we didn't deserve," she whispered. "We failed you, Mara, not just today, but for years. We saw how bright Kaylee shone, and we were so afraid of her light dimming that we blocked yours out. We were wrong. We were so terribly wrong." We talked for over an hour. It was the most honest, brutal, and necessary conversation of our lives. There was no magical reconciliation, no tearful group hug. But for the first time, the silence was filled not with what was being avoided, but with the hard, ugly truth. I looked at my parents, truly looked at them, and saw two flawed, broken people, diminished by their own guilt. "I can't forgive you tonight," I said finally, Evan's hand a warm, steady presence on my back. "I don't know when I'll be able to, but I'm willing to try to build something new, if you are truly willing to do the work." They both nodded eagerly, relief and shame warring on their faces. "That means therapy," I said, my voice firm. "Individual therapy, family therapy, for all of us. And Kaylee, she needs serious professional help. What she did was not normal sibling rivalry. It was destructive." "We know," my father agreed, his voice resolute. "When we find her, getting her help will be our number one priority, whatever it takes." As Evan and I finally walked to the elevator to go up to our room, he squeezed my hand. "Are you okay?" I considered the question, the weight of the entire day, the entire lifetime, pressing down on me. "No," I answered honestly, "but for the first time in a long time, I think I will be." The months that followed were a slow, arduous excavation of decades of dysfunction. Healing, I learned, is not a destination you arrive at. It's a grueling process, like digging through rubble after an earthquake, searching for anything worth salvaging. True to their word, my parents began therapy. We started family sessions with Dr. Sharma, and the first few meetings were excruciating. The room was thick with unspoken resentments and fresh guilt. My father, for the first time in his life, spoke about his own upbringing with a volatile, critical father, and how he'd confused quiet with safety his entire life. My mother tearfully admitted that she had poured all her own unfulfilled ambitions into Kaylee, creating a performer who needed constant applause instead of nurturing a daughter. Kaylee was found 3 days after the wedding, hiding in a motel room 2 towns over. She was ashamed and terrified. Her therapy was a non-negotiable condition of my parents' continued support. It took 2 full months before I could bring myself to see her. We met in a neutral cafe halfway between our homes. She looked smaller, stripped of her usual charisma, her light completely extinguished. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, staring into her untouched coffee. "Why?" was all I asked, the question that had haunted me for a lifetime. She took a long, shaky breath, and for the first time, I think she told me the truth. "Because you were real," she said, her voice barely audible. "Your life, your achievements, your relationship with Evan, it was all real. You earned it. I felt like I was just acting. I was playing the part of the beloved daughter, the talented actress. When you got engaged, I saw you had this complete, authentic happiness. And I didn't. I think I wanted to destroy it because I didn't know how to build it for myself. It wasn't an excuse. It didn't erase the pain. But it was a sliver of understanding. It was a start. My relationship with my parents began to slowly, painfully transform. They started showing up, not with grand gestures, but in small, consistent, meaningful ways. My father called me one afternoon to ask for my opinion on a new sound system he was buying. My mother sent me a recipe for my favourite soup with a simple note that said, "Thinking of you," with no mention of Kaylee. They were learning to see me as an individual, not as the other half of a sisterly equation. Rebuilding trust with Tessa was also a slow process. She was devastated when she learned the full truth of Kaylee's manipulation. She had been a pawn, but she also knew she should have trusted our years of friendship more than my sister's lies. We started with coffee, then dinners. The easy intimacy we once shared was gone, replaced by a more careful, deliberate connection. But it was real, and it was healing. On our first anniversary, Evan and I went back to the rooftop in Astoria. We sat at a small table watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. The sea breeze was gentle. As we ate our dessert, my phone buzzed. It was a picture from my parents. They were at home, and they had made a small cake with a single candle on it. The text below it read, "Happy anniversary. We are so proud of the life you're building. We love you." A warmth spread through my chest, a feeling that was no longer foreign. It wasn't a perfect storybook ending. The scars were still there, faint and silver under the surface. But I had learned that scars are not a sign of weakness, but a testament to survival. I had learned that family isn't just about the blood you share. It's about who shows up when the lights go out. It's about who is willing to sit in the wreckage with you and help you rebuild, piece by painful piece. Evan reached across the table and took my hand. His touch was my anchor, my home, my truth. I looked out at the vast open sky, and for the first time I could remember, the silence felt like peace. My journey was long, and it was painful, but it taught me something vital. You have the right to demand respect, even from the people who are supposed to love you the most. You have the right to set boundaries to protect your own peace. And you have the right to build your own family, a found family, where love isn't a competition and your worth is never in question. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible or unheard in your own family, please share a part of your experience in the comments below. You don't have to share details. It can be as simple as saying, "I understand." You are not alone. By sharing our stories, we take back the narrative and let others know they have a voice. And please, if you found value in this story, like this video and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Because every story shared, every voice heard, is another light in the darkness. Thank you for listening.